I have a quote from you in the Rolling Stone that I love so much, I have to start with it. There's nothing I love more than bringing attention to an unglamorous topic that deserves more attention. Even as mayor, I was an evangelist for smart sewer technology because it was, in my view, really exciting. So with the sewage analogy in our minds, talk about making governing great again.
Well, from the infrastructure perspective, it is things that might seem unsexy at first, but are incredibly important. Here's another phrase that probably doesn't make your fingers tingle. Maintenance backlog. Doesn't sound too exciting, but what I'm talking about is the investments we need to get our bridges and our roads and other infrastructure assets, even our ports and railway, into the right kind of shape. The Society of Civil Engineers put out their report card. We got a lot of C's and D's in the United States of America on the condition of a lot of our critical infrastructure. So even just taking the funding we're going to need to fix what's broken. Look, I'm a former mayor, which means one of my greatest enemies and frustrations is the common American pothole. We got to be doing more to improve our roads. And then we can also talk about the really exciting, more future-oriented things around electric vehicles, around potentially high-speed rail, any number of things that Americans are excited about. But all of this, of course, is academic if we don't make it through this crisis. That's why the rescue plan remains the absolute top priority of the president and therefore of people like me, too, until the moment he signs it, which we hope is days or hours away.
And I know that this White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, I believe on our first day, talked about how addressing inequities would be at the center of every policy. And, there are privileges involved in having an alternative to public transportation. Talk about how that sort of plays a role in the policymaking and specifically and urgently in making public transportation safe from COVID.
Simple example, and again, something that's at stake right now in this rescue plan. It includes dollars to make sure we support our transit systems, which are hurting to the point that they may not be able to keep it up without help because, of course, so many people weren't able to ride and weren't contributing fares during these lockdowns. What that means, if we don't fix it, is that a lot of people are cut off from opportunity. And those who rely on transit are disproportionately likely to be Americans of color. That's just one example of how equity comes into play in transportation policy. I'll give you another example, and again, it's related to transit. Highways have historically disproportionately gone through majority Black and brown neighborhoods, and highways also include a lot of air pollution. It's one of many reasons why rates of things like asthma and even vulnerability to the worst consequences of COVID-19 more likely to happen in communities of color. That's something we can address, first of all, by making sure that vehicles are cleaner and greener, also by making sure that people do have more options for transit and don't just have to get around in a car. All of these are choices that we can be making better in a country that, frankly, has a lot to answer for in terms of how we made these choices around who gets the transportation investment in our past.
Is your workforce going through whiplash? I mean, Infrastructure Week became the butt of every joke told by Democrats and Republicans for 4 years. Is your workforce traumatized?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, our workforce is full of phenomenal career professionals. A lot of them are transportation nerds like me. They're here because they want to be. And they come day in, day out, focused on safety and the other fundamental missions of the department. I will say there are a lot of parts of this department that did not get the support that they deserved over the last 4 years from the highest level. We have an Office of Civil Rights that is working on things like from training around issues of bias so that we're all well trained on that as a workforce, to making sure that there's responsiveness whenever there's a problem with a project out there complying with civil rights law. When I arrived, I found that hiring has not kept pace in that office. They got phenomenal people and they have phenomenal leadership. We need to make sure that every part of this department is getting the support that it needs to deliver. And you're right. Look, this is not the first time an administration has come to Washington with high expectations around big things coming for for infrastructure. That's how Infrastructure Week became a punchline. Folks got their hopes up, and it just didn't happen. We've got to make sure it's different this time. But I think this could be an infrastructure year, given the level of energy and enthusiasm that exists in the country and on both sides of the aisle here in Washington to actually get something done.
I want to get you on the record on two more things, and then I'm desperate to bring my friend Claire in. I mean, one, your predecessor is under investigation. A watchdog faulted Elaine Chao for misuse of her office, and the watchdog at your department asked the Justice Department to criminally investigate Elaine Chao last year over concerns that she misused her office when she had the job you had now, when she was the transportation secretary under Donald Trump. That request was rebuffed. The Justice Department's Criminal and Public Integrity Divisions declined in December to take it up for criminal prosecution. I wonder if you have any update on that investigation or request for an investigation and prosecution.
I don't. By design, that Inspector General office is independent, as it should be. And that was a process that started before I got here. But what I know that I'm responsible for is the ethics, compliance, and more than compliance, being absolutely squeaky clean in this department every day that I'm in this office of secretary. My very first day at work, one of the first things that we made sure I got was an ethics briefing to make sure that we understood not just what the law requires of us, but how to make sure we go above and beyond. And I'm going to see to it that throughout this department, in a department that is trusted with other people's money and with people's lives, that we're doing everything right.
I want to ask you about Joe Manchin. He has said that the process around an infrastructure package must be bipartisan in the policy making, that he will only be on board if that is the case. And I wonder what role you could play. I had the job during the Bush years of being in touch with John McCain, because he was sort of the Joe Manchin of the Bush years. He was a person in our own party who was vocal when he disagreed with us and thought that things should be more bipartisan. Joe Manchin seems to be carving out a role like that for himself in these early days. And I wonder, with your sort of Fox fluency and ability to see both sides of a debate at a time when my former party isn't always making arguments in good faith or based on facts, what role you could play with someone like Joe Manchin?
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to be talking to people with every perspective. And as you know, that's the president's approach as well. I mean, it's worth noting that the first two Oval Office meetings that I've participated in on the subject of infrastructure, both of those were meetings with legislators from both sides of the aisle. One with senators, one with House members. There's going to be more where that came from. And I'm happy to be on the phone with anybody from our party or the Republican Party who has ideas on how to make sure that America has great infrastructure, because I really believe this is a bipartisan cause. Now, look, we've learned from the American Rescue Plan that something can be abundantly bipartisan in terms of support from Democrats and Republicans around America, and that's not always reflected on Capitol Hill. But I do think our starting point has to be the idea that people from both parties want this, and leaders from both parties can vote for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank all of you out there.
Thank you as always.
Thanks to at home.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for letting us into your homes during these extraordinary times.